Jesus said, "I am the good shepherd. A good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. A hired man who is not a shepherd, and whose sheep are not his own, sees a wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away. And the wolf catches and scatters them. This is because he works for a pay and has no concern for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and I know mine and mine know me. Just as the Father knows me and I know the Father, and I will lay down my life for the sheep. And I have other sheep that I do not belong to this fold. These also I must lead, and they will hear my voice, and there will be one flock, one shepherd. This is why the Father loves me, because I lay down my life in order to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own. I have the power to lay it down, and power to take it up again. This command I received from my Father." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. On this day of Saint Joseph the Worker, on this feast, which in many places is Labor Day, first of all, we must ask the Lord so that we can all have a job, and a decent job, for the conditions of our job be humane conditions and not enslaving or semi-slave, and so that we all have a job, to each one according to their possibilities and their qualities. But that allows supporting the family with dignity, for example. Today, the day of Saint Joseph the Worker, we entrust it to our Holy Protector. Today's Gospel invites us to continue meditating on the figure of the Good Shepherd. Yesterday, in many places, celebrated the Good Shepherd Day. Jesus is the Good Shepherd. We must not forget this. It is not us, priests or bishops. Jesus is the Good Shepherd. Only He. He says it clearly. Only He is the door through which we must enter. Only He has given His life for the sheep. Shepherds, at least in ancient Spain, where I was born and lived, because today there are very few shepherds left. The shepherd used to have helpers. Those helpers were called zigales. Generally, they were boys, who were sometimes the shepherd's children, who helped him along with the dogs when the flocks of sheep were big. Jesus is the Good Shepherd, and we are the Good Shepherd's helpers. The helper does not put himself above or in front of the teacher whom he helps, but collaborates with him. Christ is the Good Shepherd. We have to collaborate with Christ, not replace Christ. When Jesus taught, He said, "You have heard what it was said to you, but I tell you." He was changing the law, and that law, at least in some things, He was changing, and that law was sacred to the Jews. This bothered some of them a lot. For example, He changed the rigidity of the law with which the precept rest on Saturday was lived. Nevertheless, Jesus could do it, because only a legally instituted legislator can change the laws. Jesus could do it because Jesus is God. We are not gods. The temptation of the shepherd, the priest, or the bishop will always be the temptation of pride, to become God. That is, to put themselves above Christ. You have heard that Christ told you, but I tell you. I insist one more in the need not to receive communion if you are not in the grace of God. In the need to respect that so as not to offend the Lord. It is something that worries me above anything else. It is not the only thing, but that is what worries me the most above all. It hurts me so much, a lot when almost daily I receive emails from people who complain that they're priests, who are inviting everyone to receive communion. They say explicitly, Day before yesterday, someone said to me, he told me that the priest said, "Everyone, come to receive communion no matter how you are. Don't despise the Lord." He said, "Don't despise the Lord who is here in the tabernacle, who is here at the altar table. Don't despise him rejecting him. Don't despise him and come to receive communion." I don't know what it is in the hearts of those priests. I don't know it. I don't understand it. It hurts me enormously. It is St. Paul. It is the tradition of the church from the first moment, and it is the Lord himself who says it in several very clear parables. The one who receives communion unworthily eats and drinks his own damnation. No priest in the world, nor no bishop, nor the set of all bishops, assuming that they all agreed, cannot change this. St. Paul says, even if angels came from heaven and teach you a different doctrine than this, don't listen to them. It is anathema. We are the zagiles, not the shepherds. We are the helpers, and we cannot replace the shepherd. We are not gods. The first temptation is precisely that. Consider yourself God, and to consider that for whatever reason, you can decide what is good and what is bad, even though Jesus Christ has said otherwise. It does not matter if Jesus Christ said, "He who divorces his woman and marries another commits adultery against the first." It does not matter if Jesus Christ said, "Now these super shepherds say that Jesus Christ is wrong and that you can receive communion in any circumstance, and this is simply an example." That is why, since shepherds don't usually see these homilies, and almost no one sees it, and of course those who see it and don't think like me don't pay attention to me, I appeal to the laity. Don't receive communion. Don't offend the Lord. Don't commit sacrilege if you are not in the grace of God. Obviously, not being in grace means you have mortal sin. I am not saying that you have to confess if there is no mortal sin. Don't offend the Lord, even if your pastor tells you, even if your bishop tells you, even if someone, whoever tells you. Don't offend the Lord by receiving communion in mortal sin. On the other hand, there is something that we, shepherds, the good shepherds' helpers, the zagiles, should do. We have the obligation to do it, and instead, many don't do it. Not only the dignified celebration of Mass, without introducing the changes that each one wants to introduce, but the confession. Why are the confessionals empty? Why? Recently, Pope Francis asked that the confessionals should not be empty. He told the priests, "Go to the confessional to confess." But curiously, conservative priests are the ones who are in the confessional confessing. Liberal priests who say that they are the true interpreters and friends of Pope Francis. They say so. They are practically never in the confessionals. How many parishes are there? A whole lot. I don't have statistics, but from what I know, and I know a lot, very many. How many parishes are there where the priest goes to confession for 1 hour a week or half an hour a week for a little while on Saturday? If not, if you don't have to ask appointment, cross a series of insurmountable barriers, secretary to secretary to secretary, who gives you an appointment for who knows when, if the priest, when that moment arrives, has not come up with anything else. We, the priests, are servants of Christ present in the Eucharist, and the servants of Christ who, through us, gives the absolution of sins. Not understanding this is not knowing what a priest is. St. John Mary Vianney spent so many hours in the confessional, so many hours there. They came from all over from France to that little village where he was the parish priest. They came from all over France at a time when there was no automobile or train or plane. They came to vent, to seek advice, to confess. Saint Padre Pio of Pietrelcina was exactly the same. There have been people who have become slaves to the confessional. Instead, today the priests flee from the confessional. Fortunately, not all priests, but perhaps it is. I don't know, because it is the only sacrament where there is money. Because even if you ask to bless the house, you know that they are going to give you something. The celebration of Mass, something for the intention. The baptism, something. In confession, there is no money involved. Perhaps it is for such reason why they flee from the confessional. We are Christ, good shepherds helpers. We are not gods. We are not above Christ. This, which is common sense, how much I would like to enter the souls of priests, to celebrate Holy Mass well, not offend the Lord by inviting for sacrileges to be committed, being available to the faithful confessing, providing them with the greatest consolation, the greatest relief, the greatest grace, which is precisely to recover the grace of God. So be it.